Drifting looks like chaos, but behind it is control, precision, and pressure. And everyone starts somewhere. But where do we start? For years, there wasn't a real starting place. No structured path, no real competition environment. You either figured it out alone, or you didn't make it. For me, it went something like this. As a 5-ish-year-old kid, the first taste of motorsport came in the form of Gran Turismo on my PlayStation 1. Hours of chasing lap times and high scores, and not much in the way of high-end graphics or realistic physics. But little did I know that this game was the start of the path that I would later dedicate a huge part of my life to. A few years later, and a line of amazing racing games later, I found myself in my early teenage years and a massive leap in both graphics quality and physics. Gran Turismo 5. Since the very first lap, this game changed everything for me. The physics, the cars, the amount of tunability, and not to forget to mention, all the legendary tracks. I will never forget the feeling of driving around the notorious Top Gear test track for the first time. I spent hours upon hours learning everything I could about racing lines, driving techniques, car tuning, and how to drive in different classes of racing, rallying, and even Formula 1. Not too long after I'd been to a local track day, I decided to pull the trigger on my first wheel. A Logitech Driving Force GT. Compared to today's standards, it's more reminiscent of a war relic, but back then it was a true game changer. I could finally get my first real taste of what it was truly like to drive. To go down the main straight at the Nordschleife, with the force feedback shaking my arms to bits. The sensation of the front wheels gripping hard in intense Formula 1 cars. This was the most fun I'd ever had playing video games. After having grinded Gran Turismo 5 for a while, and trying to find what category of motorsport I preferred, I started to notice a very different type of driving. I'd been aware of drifting for many years, especially having grown up around the world's most northern racetrack, the Arctic Circle Raceway, where drifting had grown into the most popular class of driving very quickly. I always thought it was the most exciting driving to watch, as a spectator, but at the time I didn't view it much as a sport. But after having seen drifting for myself, clips from small competition on the internet, and a growing popularity for it in public lobbies in Gran Turismo, I decided to give it a go for myself. And what happened I can only describe as a love at first sight experience. The sensation of controlling a car that is essentially out of control captivated me. I became obsessed with it. I experimented with different cars, tracks, wheelbases, tunes, and driving techniques. Drifting became everything to me. I started watching Formula Drift and other competitions. I took notes from professional drivers wherever I could, and every chance I had to witness it in real life was prioritized above all. And what ensued was a lifelong passion and hunger that still stays with me every day. Now naturally, we all know what comes next. Assetto Corsa. To this day, it still stands as the final level and most realistic experience you can have before you go out there and do it for real. Everything I had learned came into play when I joined Assetto, and it was by far the hardest thing I had done yet. With months of practice adapting to the speed and physics, I was able to get into my first pro drift cars and eventually pro tracks. I took part in small competitions and had small highs of victory, and it only made me hunger for more. Assetto Corsa today has many communities and opportunities to get into authentic competitions. It became the hosting ground for the Virtual Drift Championship series 10 years ago and is by far one of the most prestigious and athlete-level esport events that exists. And at the end of it all, I got old enough to get my license. I had my first few cars, my first few crashes, and laps around the track that I grew up around. Every single experience, from hitting the power button on that PlayStation 1, to banging doors with the best virtual drifters in the world in Assetto Corsa, meeting and receiving knowledge for some of the best drivers in motorsport history, and my own efforts, I got into drifting for real. And my quest, yet still ongoing, would not have been possible without it all. Now, a few years ago, that got me thinking. Drifting, although still considered a niche sport, doesn't really have a true starting ground, readily available to everyone. Through all my efforts, all the different games and communities I've been through, I wondered, how many more had the potential to be here and to make the sport grow even bigger? A dream was set in motion. I needed a game that was steadily available on all platforms without the need for expensive sim equipment. A game that replicates the true physics in an authentic but easy to learn way. A game that can easily be set up to host authentic drifting competitions on any level of skill. A game that's utilized by the same age group I was in when I got started. Roblox is a platform I've used for over a decade now. Some years ago, I noticed that the physics in car games were starting to get somewhere, so naturally, I created a small drifting enthusiast group. We called ourselves Roblox Drift Gang, and had small gatherings and sessions where we drove, talked about cars, and gathered more members. This eventually died down, but it gave me the hope that one day an even better game would appear. And sure enough, a few years later, I discovered Solitary. This was the most important game to me and what would eventually inspire what I've made now. After playing the game for a while, I decided that this was the game I was going to create my first proper test at an entry-level drifting league community. I called it Formula Road Drift. Original name, I know. Short story told, I set up the community in Discord. I gathered drivers, judges, and talented people to help out on the project. And after many hours of learning new skills and adapting the competitive drifting format to an untested platform, we made results. From an outside perspective, it could look very bland, unfinished, and downright unprofessional. But after a bunch of small competitions in different categories, we had proven that competitive drifting was, with a bit of adaptation and pioneering, very possible on the platform. One night, when I was searching around Roblox for potential new games that was better equipped and optimized for what we were doing, I discovered a game called Berserk Drift. I hopped on and discovered that the game had no active players. I opened up the in-game menu and started testing out some of the cars. I was shocked by what I discovered. A full pack of pro cars, pro competitive maps from real life events, and physics that was beyond any other Roblox game I had previously tested. I called for the rest of my community to join me to check this game out. About 8 of our members joined, and the reactions were the same as mine. We drove around for a bit when suddenly the game creator, DXT, joined in. He was wondering why there was suddenly a whole group of players in his empty game. This was the first time I met DXT, and I shared with him my thoughts of his amazing game and a whole list of wishes of what I really wanted from a competitive drifting game on the platform. Almost a year later, and after letting Formula Road Drift quiet down, I brought with me the dedicated friends I had made creating the community and deemed the project as a success. At this point, I'd been vacant from the platform for a bit, but decided to check back in on Berserk Drift to see if DXT had made any progress. The game has gained traction, with an active player base and a lot more detail. Almost everything that I had wished for had been added to the game, and it was only gonna go up from here. Today, when you join the game and open up the car menu, you will find 4 categories: Street, Pro, Missile, and Semi-Pro. The Pro cars are set up very similarly to the VDC Pro car pack in Assetto Corsa. Once you're in your car, you have multiple choices when it comes to tuning and customization. From engine and turbo swaps that change the sound your car produces, to gear tuning, neons and underglows, body and wheel painting, suspension tuning, pre-made tune swaps, and more. And my absolute favorite aspect of customizing in Berserk is the livery system. There is a template library created by DXT where you can fetch the template from whichever car you like. You can then create your very own custom livery in any basic photo editing program, upload it to the Roblox Creator Hub, and apply it in-game with the item ID in seconds. Now this allows for a different category of player to join the game and the community. There are some really talented artists in Berserk Drift who's solely there to create amazing liveries, most of which can be found in the game's Discord server. Another epic function of the game is the ability to use the FPV drone. It functions, flies, and looks just like a real drone, and can even be flown with an actual drone controller. This really adds to the modern feel and vibe of a busy drift track. Next step, the driving. Before you set off, you might want to familiarize yourself with the controls. There is also full customization options for controls, all of which can be found in the in-game settings menu. The game is optimized for keyboard, mouse, controllers, and phone devices, so we highly suggest that you play on a controller for the best experience. Now, for your first experience, I highly suggest that you travel to one of the non-competitive category tracks and get some seat time in the street or missile category cars. This is to get a feel for the physics that the game operates with, and obviously to get your reaction time and skill up to spec before moving up to the pro class. The street cars in this game are truly one of the most accurate representations I've seen in Roblox of just how limited an actual street spec car feels. You don't have unlimited power, torque figures, or angle kits to save you from spinning out. Overall, going from the bottom at a streetcar level will teach you a lot more about drifting than rushing to the top ever will. Now for Pro. When you first set off in one of the Pro category cars, you will immediately notice the speed, grip, and angle that these cars can perform at. All the cars are built on the same physics, be it with tweaks in weight, suspension geometry, and performance figures. To put them all apart from each other, but none of them are so different that it gives them an advantage in a competitive setting. It's honestly just like VDC cars in that way. Example, one particular car may be better at a certain track than another car, and vice versa. Once you start your journey at the pro level, it will never end. The hunger to be faster, wider and more consistent on any given track or car will never end. Trust me. So, you've now gotten into Berserk, found a car that you like, and you have spent countless hours practicing, making custom tunes and your own livery. Now, the only big question remaining: how do I get into competition? There's essentially two ways to do this. One is to take part in so-called minicomps. These are events that are held either at random in public lobbies whenever enough people gather and collectively decide to have one for fun. They are also announced throughout Berserk's Discord server, generally under the public sessions channel. For me, the minicomp format is absolutely brilliant. Having the opportunity to go into these minicomps to actually get to drive under pressure and to practice controlling your nerves and emotions have really shown to elevate drivers to the next level. Now, the second way to get into competitions is to either join the official Berserk Drift X competitive server and qualify for their official competitions. I've taken part in most of the competitions they've held since I joined the game, and it is by far one of the most epic and challenging adventures I've had in drifting throughout my life. With so many talented players attempting to qualify every event and only 16 spots to fill, just getting to the actual competition is hard. The official BDX comps are also streamed live and have been since they started. And at the front of the show is Smooth Entry with his commentating and epic drone operating skills showing off every event. There are also a handful of different drifting teams that operate on the platform, who also host competitions bigger than what you would expect from the minicomp format. And then there is Berserk Apex Drift League, or Battle for short. This is my passion project. A community and competitive league I created with my experience and knowledge to give the players the most authentic competitive experience as possible. From creating and adapting rules and judging to work 100% with the game, to setting up live streams with overlays, commentary, replay cams, judge brackets, and parody commercials for that extra Formula Drift vibe, to learning new skills, failing and winning. It was all worth it. I had a dream to be a part of and create a starting ground in a sport and passion where my generation had no real starting place. To give something back to drifting, because it has made me into who I am. Thank you.
Mathias, he's done a lot, especially for me. He's one of the closest friends I've had in like a long time, and he's someone I really look up to. He's inspired me to figure out what I actually enjoy, and if I'm being honest, without him, I probably wouldn't even be into competitive drifting. And I'm really grateful for that. Without his support and advice, I wouldn't be here doing what I love.
Mathias Aasbo has always stood out to me. His effort, his consistency, his passion. From everything we've been through, from the road drift to battle, I think he's given it everything. Over the past 2 years, he's become more than just part of the community. He's been like an older brother to me. He helped me shape who I am today. So, thank you.